Hello friends, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel and the final preview of a game in the 2021-22 season, and it's an absolute belter. The Champions League final, Liverpool against Real Madrid, revenge. I know you're all thinking it, Liverpool fans, Jurgen Klopp, I don't believe in revenge. Come on. Anyway, in this video we're going to talk about the final itself. Will it be a classic or not? I think it's going to be a bit of a belter. We've got the team news that we've got to talk about and how they're going to set up, big calls that Liverpool have got to make, and how are Real Madrid even going to beat this Liverpool side after their struggles in getting to this final. All that and so much more, actually probably just that in this video. But if you do want more, please do consider subscribing to the channel. We're very, very close to 180k. Trying to get to 200k as quickly as possible. And if you've enjoyed the content this season and you still haven't subscribed, do us a favour and click that button for me. Let's dive into it. So the last few years haven't been decent, have they, when it comes to the finals in terms of them being spectacles? Think of 2020-21, you got Chelsea against Man City, 1-0, Bayern Munich against PSG the year before, which had its moments, to be honest, but still was just a 1-0 affair. And then the 2-0 victory for Liverpool a couple of seasons ago against Spurs, which was probably one of the worst finals we've seen in quite some time. So going into this, I just want a classic. And I think we have got some of the ingredients, although it could be a damp squib. It really, really could. But what we do have here is two teams with incredible experience in terms of their football clubs, in terms of winning the Champions League. Liverpool going for their 7th Champions League, which just seems crazy. But then you look at Real Madrid. 14. La 14. I think that's 14. Well, it was when I Googled it. Hang on. And Real Madrid are going for
14.
What we do know is Liverpool as a football team, as a football club, in European games are blockbuster, especially when it's a proper game of football. We'll look at their road to the final in just a second. Some people having a go at the teams that they've played, but actually it's a little bit harder than people imagine. And with Real Madrid, just unbelievable fortitude to allow themselves to be completely box office. And in terms of like the most valuable team in the Champions League this year has to be Real Madrid. They've offered up so much entertainment this year, as we'll talk about when we talk about their road to the final. Let's start off with Liverpool though, who had a barnstorming start to their campaign, winning 6 out of 6 in a group that people forget about. People forget about how good this group was, and the fact that this is the first English side ever to record 6 straight wins in the Champions League group stage. Liverpool scored 17 goals, conceded just 6 during that time, which puts them 4th in the list in terms of the group stages. But the group that they had was really, really difficult. You know, Atletico Madrid, who were champions at the time, AC Milan, who went on to be champions as well, and Porto, who are obviously no slouches at all when it comes to European competition, a previous winner. So to have that in your group means it was a tough one. And it kind of gets forgotten about, it massively gets forgotten about. Moving into the round of 16, they then took on Inter Milan, which was a very, very tricky, sort of prickly tactical battle that they had to navigate, and did so again quite comfortably without anyone really talking about how well they played. They didn't play phenomenally well, but that's kind of because Inter really gave absolutely everything, but ended up running out of steam, and the quality of the squad showed, like so Firmino stepping up massively in that. Then of course took on Benfica, which they would have been happy with, and then Villarreal. And if you think of the round of 16, Villarreal, Benfica, at the start of it, those are two teams you would have been delighted to have got then. So that is where it does get that little bit easier for them. Onto Real Madrid's road to the final. They also topped their group. They did lose a game though. It was a shock defeat to FC Sheriff Tiraspol of Moldova. You remember that one? Absolute scenes back in the day. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. When you look at their results, you kind of feel like, wow, are these the Galacticos? However, when you watch them, especially once they got into the round of 16, and let's have it right, they've had an incredibly difficult run through to the final. You know, if you think taking on Chelsea, who were the previous winners, so PSG initially, who were the finalists the year before, and of course are a juggernaut of a football club, and then Man City, the hot favourites really to win the whole thing. To get through all of them is astounding. However, and I've got a lot of heat for this, because I've been going, I don't understand it. I don't know how they've got to the final. And there's a magic to that, right? Because people talk about pedigree, people talk about the sort of majesty of a huge club that's been there and done it, and that's what gets them over the line. And maybe that has been it. But when you look at the stats And when you do it with your own eyes as a neutral, and you go through those games, think of the first game of the round of 16 against PSG. You can see straight away, look at the momentum bar. This is the momentum bar. And I think this is a good way of visualizing how the whole match goes in terms of dominance. No doubt, Real Madrid have got quality and clutch quality, if that makes sense, with the likes of Benzema and the fact that he can just win a game on his own. And Modric did it at times as well. But in terms of dominating a football match, they haven't got near it against difficult opposition. But for a team to get to the final, you would have thought they would have dominated one of these games. If we make our way through it, if you think of that first leg against PSG completely dominated that game. The second leg, first half, it looked the same. And in the second half, PSG, in my opinion, completely capitulated. I've never seen anything like it. Literally just giving Real Madrid the ball. Just absolutely bizarre. But in that tie, that PSG were the better side for the bulk of it. You move on into the Chelsea games. Look at the momentum bars again. Again, it was, yes, they had moments. Yes, they got the win. Yes, it was a very impressive win in terms of the scoreline, but they never really controlled the game. Certainly not at Chelsea. Maybe it's, look, if I'm being harsh, you talk about game state there, and that's the fact that they were sort of sitting back in that second half. But really, it was pretty 50-50 in the first half, but there was that quality and that ability to get back-to-back goals, which again, your PSG game and the Chelsea game, that really has helped them out, that ability to go again with the tempo once they score a goal against the opposition. In the second leg, all Chelsea, it is completely all Chelsea. So again, not able to dominate. Man City, look, that's one of those games where it's going to be difficult to dominate against Man City at any point. That said, they had no right to get through that tie when it comes to the domination of the game. I know football doesn't work like that, but it's valid. It's a valid point. Even if you look in the second leg as well. Again, Real Madrid in the knockout stages have not dominated a single game yet. And that's pretty astounding when you think of Real Madrid. This isn't Steaua Bucharest back in the 80s, just hanging in there. This is Real Madrid. And that's why when you look at this game, you think, surely this has to be Liverpool's. But then what has gone before just makes you wonder. And that's the beauty of football. I mean, as I say, large periods of those games for Real Madrid haven't dominated those games. And in terms of XG, they've got the 5th worst XG in the competition. 16.6 goals against, expected goals against. Liverpool, on the other hand, expected goals against of 10 in the competition this year. So with all that said, when you look at the stats and the domination, despite the teams that they've faced, on paper, I think you have to suggest that Liverpool are, dare I say it, hot favourites. In terms of top performers for Real Madrid in the Champions League this year, very clear, isn't it? Karim Benzema, the top scorer of 15 goals. The guy is a joke this year. Vinicius Jr. with the most assists with 6. Most key passes per 90, 2.6 for Vinicius Jr. as well. And Vinicius Jr. has the most progressive passes received, 8.54, which again will come in handy later in the video. Because when we look at the team lineups, there are some big decisions to make, both in terms of personnel and tactically. Right, guys, let's look at the predicted lineups. In my opinion, this is what I think the two teams will go for, but then you have the little movements and positioning of these players, and I think that could play a very interesting part in this game of football. First of all, Real Madrid. Now, Real Madrid, you've got Alaba, who looks like he's going to be fit for this match, which is a huge blessing for Los Blancos because they need him. They desperately need him. Nacho Fernandez will come in and do a job and has done so in the Champions League itself. He's a good pro. He's not at Alaba's level. His sweeping abilities have saved Real a few times, and his reading of the play is just going to be so important, especially when you've got the fantastic movement of Salah, Mane and Diaz, who I expect to be the front three. And I think maybe we'll go through it in terms of those matchups along the way. So let's start off with that, because I actually think, here's my first prediction. This is Mane's final. This is what I believe. So I'm kind of giving it away already in terms of my prediction. I have two predictions as well, because I have head and I have gut. So let's start off with head. But when I look at this game, I just see Mane getting great space, the team being able to find them. They're so well drilled. They've basically patented the 4-3-3 now in terms of how they play it. But also the use of Salah, Henderson or Alexander-Arnold in terms of having a wide player, and importantly, Diaz on this left-hand side, and the ability of someone like Alexander-Arnold, and we've spoken about it in terms of those long balls per 90, to be able to spray those long balls over to Diaz, and even if that doesn't kind of pan out, right, in terms of that initially hurting the opposition, the ability to stretch this defence makes Mane the beneficiary, in my opinion. I think what has been so fantastic about Diaz is, as much as he's been awesome, it's allowed Mane to go into its centre-forward position. And Mane, I'll be intrigued to see if people agree with me, Mane is a better centre-forward than Diogo Jota. He offers so much with the ball, without the ball, in general play, ability to dribble the ball, and his finishing has just gone up a level this year, in my opinion. So with that stretching, I just think his runs and his ability and the form that he's in right now, I just can't see how he doesn't tear it up, especially on this left-hand side with Militao, who I think can be susceptible at times. The other thing to remember here is that Divock Origi is not available for this game. He will miss the game. So, in terms of having something off the bench, Firmino and Jota are two really, really good options. And then just broadly speaking, I think that is your best front three right now. Moving into the midfield fascinates me massively as well. I've got to say straight away, I would like to see Camavinga generally play, but tactically, there's a couple of things that could be really, really interesting. Also, you've got the option of someone like Rodrigo to play instead of Valverde. That has happened at times. If I just take him off for a second, what you could do is go for it. I don't see that happening because I think, again, you need someone to be able to come off the bench, and Rodrigo is the guy who can go and do that. And also, you need to be able to safeguard yourselves against the opposition and those switches of play that Liverpool are so good at. You know, Robertson will be looking to get on the ball and go around the side of him with the overlap, and Valverde's got to be very, very switched on and put a lot of running in, because at times Modric, of course, still has the legs, but Cruz certainly doesn't, in my opinion. Likes to sit there. Casemiro will sit there and dig a hole as well. So with the high-octane style of Liverpool, Valverde and the running that he's able to put in is just so integral to the team. But that's why I like Camavinga, because I think they're a little bit light when it comes to that. What could be a real asset, though, for Real Madrid is a couple of things. Take a look at this. This is the average positions from the game against Betis, and this is a great way of sort of visualising the average positions of what we will definitely see when it comes to Real Madrid in this game. They are one-dimensional in that sense, in terms of they want to get the ball to Vinicius Jr., they want to get the ball down that left-hand side, they want him to be as advanced as possible, and they want an asymmetric system. Who does that play into the hands of, though, in this game? I think you can look at it both ways. Let's have a look at it. So, when we set this up, you've got Cruz on this left-hand side, which I would expect, although we'll talk about that in a second. A lot of talk about Thiago. Klopp suggesting that he will be fit. What I think will happen here is that I think they would start Thiago. You've got 5 substitutions, of course, in the Champions League. So start Thiago. If he's 70-80%, let him do what he can do. And at the very worst, you're not bringing him on, then bringing him off. They'll start him, and then if he's not up to it, he'll come off. That's what I expect to happen. And a lot of the sort of, oh, well, I think he's actually all right, you know. I'm not totally convinced by that when it comes to Jurgen Klopp. But I think if they can play him, they will play him, right? Henderson, I think Henderson will play in a game like this. I think it's just too big. Alexander-Arnold, we're going to talk about that in a second because I think it's absolutely fascinating. Fabinho is going to have a really important role to play in terms of stopping the service to Benzema, but also Modric as well. And we'll talk about that in a second as well. And then you've got Matip, Van Dijk, Robertson, of course, as well. So Valverde will be trying to deal with, you know, the movement of Diaz in terms of if he comes inside. A lot of work for him to do defensively. Obviously with that switch as well. I think it will be quite congested on this side from Liverpool's point of view, but also Real Madrid are quite happy with that as well, because that means that Cruz can have players surrounding him and he won't get as exposed. What I think could be interesting here is a couple of things. So first of all, could Cruz, and if you think about how Real Madrid hurt Liverpool, was it last year, I think? Now, Liverpool are in a very different place at this moment in time. But what did work was Cruz dropped very deep. Now, if he does it on this side, the sort of angle for the pass to Vinicius Jr., who we know is the guy that they want to get to, it's just a little bit more difficult, I would suggest. I mean, he will make these diagonal runs at times, but often he likes to sort of start wide and get the ball. You've also got Benzema who will drop in, I think. Benzema is going to be in a really awkward position here. So Cruz could come and spray those passes on that side. But I do just wonder if they play in a double pivot. In that game against Real Madrid the other year, what they actually did was Cruz came over to this right-hand side. And with that, it made it very, very difficult because for Alexander-Arnold, who wants to be on the front foot and get forward as well, Vinicius Jr. was able to start behind him and he couldn't see him. And I think that's a lot harder to defend as opposed to if Cruz is on this other side. So I wonder if Cruz would float that little bit to get on the ball to play those long passes. That could be one way of doing it, but if they keep the similar format that they normally have, another thing that they might do, especially if Thiago does start, I wonder if Modric goes and sits on Thiago because of two reasons. One, stop Thiago playing, but second of all, I wonder if you can get Thiago booked and booked early. So keep an eye out for that as well. It's just something that's popped into my head. I just wonder if Modric goes and sits with him, gets on the ball. Thiago likes to be on the front foot. He's not completely fit. And then all of a sudden makes a bit of a funny challenge. Modric starts rolling about. You get yourself a booking and then you're getting yourself in an awkward situation for Thiago, who we saw him come off. He's not going to be completely 100%. Also, that kind of takes Thiago out of the game the other way, which, I mean, would be an absolutely amazing battle between those two. And also, starting off with Modric on this side and him getting on the ball, again, he can play those passes to Vinicius Jr., who will start wide and who will get as high as possible. The other thing to think about, as I say, Benzema dropping in deep to create that space in behind, from Liverpool's point of view, is a couple of things. Do they go toe-to-toe with this, right? Do you go, no, Alexander-Arnold will play where he wants to play. What we will do is we will crowd this area, we'll press high with Thiago. Keita, if he wants to come in or has to come in, can do that as well. His statistics, although I've said myself, I've not totally been sure about him in terms of us being in the starting 11. But what you do get is those pressing numbers. And what you want to do is get on this Real Madrid side so that they can't play those passes to Vinicius Jr. because Liverpool will dominate this game in terms of dominating the ball, I would imagine. And that's something that Real Madrid have actually been quite comfortable with. Ancelotti's been okay with that. But what you do with Alexander-Arnold, if you do it in a Jurgen Klopp style where he's front foot and going, this is how we play. We're going to stop you from turning. We're going to stop you being able to play those passes. What it does is it puts a lot of pressure. Let me get rid of this. It puts a lot of pressure on Matip, if it is Matip. So that comes to my sort of final question for Liverpool fans. Let me know in the comments below. In the Champions League, it's been Konaté a lot of the time. And is that due to fixture congestion or is it due to the players that they've been being up against? I have two schools of thought on it. What's great is you've got such a good squad and Konaté's been so impressive. You have two schools of thought here, right? Matip experience, what an incredible season he's had, is very good one-on-one, but doesn't have the same pace or physical ability of Konaté. Konaté is obviously not as experienced as Matip. So Vinicius Jr. might be able to get the better of him from that point of view. But what I just wonder if Jurgen Klopp will go, we're better than you. And I don't think we need to be afraid of you. And actually take that gamble and go, Real Madrid, can you find Vinicius Jr.? We're going to literally tease you into finding him and back Matip or Konaté to go and deal with it, because you will have Fabinho try and stop all the service there. Same with Modric as well. And I guess that's the one thing I wonder as well with Thiago, if he's not totally fit. Do you do something outrageous here and play Milner and just go, if we stop you from scoring one goal, we will definitely get one? There's so many different ways of looking at this. Do you just go for it and go, no, hang on a minute, let's not second guess ourselves. We have seen what Real Madrid have been like and we are better than them. We're going to go and dominate this game. Or are you just that little bit more cautious because they have had the quality, especially down that left-hand side and with the moments that Benzema can offer you, that if we get ourselves a clean sheet, then we'll get ourselves the victory. It's very, very difficult. And that decision of the role of Alexander-Arnold, and what will happen is on Twitter, people will go, if Liverpool lose the game, they'll go hard on Alexander-Arnold, but he will be given a very clear directive. Now in the FA Cup, he was absolutely fantastic defensively, and so you might see that again. And of course, they will look to get back when they can. But I think there could be some moments where Alexander-Arnold goes, trust me, trust me to have the ball. I'm not going to give it away. That's where you might be a little bit more concerned with someone like Henderson, who can do that at times, but they just need to be careful with where they are and where Vinicius Jr. is in terms of cleaning all of that up. I think the great thing that you've got as well, is worth remembering, is that you have Virgil van Dijk there, and Virgil van Dijk will be able to see and survey that whole left-hand side. And I think his reading of the game is so impressive that, again, Vinicius Jr., one of the players of the Champions League, Benzema, one of the players of the Champions League. If you do an 11, they are both in it. But this Liverpool side has answers, defensively and offensively. This is a hotspot, and it often is when it comes to Liverpool. And there will be scary moments. And in terms of a scary player in a scary situation, it doesn't get much worse than Vinicius Jr. So there's no reason why Real Madrid can't nick this. It's crazy. I'm just fascinated to see that the stretching of that and the use of the ball from Alexander-Arnold and those long pings to Diaz. I wonder if that brings in some players that you wouldn't really imagine scoring the goals. I've got a feeling Salah will be quiet, which I know is a very dangerous thing for me to say. Happy to be wrong, obviously. I just think this is Mane's final. That's my prediction. So my head says Liverpool to win it. I think they'll win it convincingly. And I actually think they'll win it 3-1, a reverse of the final a couple of years ago. That's what my head says. My gut says that I've been so wrong about Real Madrid, and they've got such experienced players that are used to these finals, and I'm not saying Liverpool aren't, that they can affect it. And I've just been proven wrong so many times that it makes me think, my gut thinks Real Madrid are going to cause a shock here. But everything in my mind and head says this will be Liverpool's. So let's see. I'm going to go with my head on this one. I do think it will come to an end now. I think Liverpool will get the job done. I think they have the energy. I think they have had that bit of a rest, which will be useful as well. Thiago is a huge loss, and Modric could be very, very difficult to stop in this game as well. But again, I feel like they've got the personnel, and they're so well drilled, and they play on the front foot. And I think they'll get the job done. I think it'll be number 7 for Liverpool. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a favour. Hit the like button and subscribe to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.